As they say, now for something completely different in a lot of different ways. I think our first presenter said she was going to go off script. Those of you who know me know that most often I speak with no script. And so that's what I'll do today, and I'm really hoping I'll never get to the 2-minute warning so that we have some time for questions. I just, as Emile said, I'm with the Canadian Human Rights Commission. I'm a bit of an outlier on this panel in a couple of different ways. I'm not a researcher. I know nothing about statistics. And of course, the Commission is not strictly government. And so we're not government, we're not civil society. We sit somewhere in the space in between those things. So unfortunately, I won't be building on anything else that has been said here today. I'm more going to loop back to what Steve was talking about this morning with respect to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and just fill you in on some exciting opportunities with respect to the work that the Canadian Human Rights Commission is doing. So to start with, if we look at the context of what we're all here over these 2 days to talk about, we know that employment remains a preeminent concern for persons with disabilities. Federally, if we're talking about human rights complaints, of course the Commission is the federal body responsible for dealing with human rights complaints. We know that over 50% of the complaints that we receive every year are related to disability, and 84% of those complaints are related to employment, which means that 44% of all human rights complaints at the federal level are filed by persons with disabilities as a result of issues that they have faced in relation to employment in the federal sector. If we look across the country, the numbers are very similar in most jurisdictions, ranging from about 17% of the overall caseload in Quebec to over 50% in Nova Scotia. So this is a significant issue right across the country. What else do we know? We know the CRPD, Canada's international obligation, not just the CRPD, but all of the 7 treaties to which Canada is a party speak about employment and inclusion and accessibility. We know that there are significant gaps that need to be filled, and I think that's why we're all here today. Steve was talking this morning a bit about the CRPD and the monitoring process in Geneva and such, and that's all great. I want to take that as kind of my starting point. Certainly, it's great to have a monitoring process like that, where Canada is held to account for implementing the obligations that it has under the international agreements that it has signed. But of course, there are some significant limitations to that process. The CRPD is expansive, 33 articles covering everything. Work and employment, which we're here to talk about today, is one article of 33. The reporting process is really compact. There's not a lot of space to really delve into conversations and figure out what solutions may be. And we're talking to, it's been my experience, I've done a lot of these things, we're often talking to a body of experts that we get stuck for a good portion of the time talking about federalism. And what does it mean to exist in a federal state, and what powers the federal government, who's responsible for signing on to these things, actually has over implementing any of them on the ground. So there are some significant limitations. The reviews happen once every 4 years in Geneva. It's when we really think about that, it's sometimes of little applicability to people's actual lives, and you can understand that. And it's a very formal process. It's not inclusive. Not everybody can get on a plane and go to Geneva and speak to a committee. And so that's not really in keeping with the principles of the CRPD, nothing about us without us. So the CRPD is a bit unique in that it tries to correct some of those problems by obligating a state party to the convention to designate an independent monitoring mechanism at home to do domestic monitoring, and that's the Commission. It just, with the passage of the ACA, the Commission was given that designation. And so we're just at the beginning of a long road. And what I wanted to spend my last couple of minutes here talking about is that process that we're going through right now. You know, the title of this panel is How Will We Know That We're Making Progress? And as the monitoring mechanism, we have the same question. That we don't know what that looks like. We don't know what monitoring means, what it should be producing, and we don't know how best to ensure that the people whose lives the CRPD actually needs to affect, the people in this room, persons living with disabilities, they need to not only be, consulted in this process, they need to be involved in this process. The CRPD means nothing if it means nothing to the people who actually are impacted by the potential of it. And so, again, right at the beginning of a process, but I just wanted to let everyone know that the Commission, over the course of the next 8 to 10 months or so, we'll be doing coast-to-coast engagement with everybody who we can reach in all jurisdictions to figure out what monitoring might look like. What is it you want us to measure? How will you know that we're making progress? And not just in terms of numbers. Some indicators, some numbers for sure, but we really want to know, what does it mean to monitor what day-to-day life is like for someone who's living with a disability, and what does that look like? We know how to do reports and send them to Geneva. We don't know what it is that communities actually need to make these things a real, living, breathing, tangible thing in their daily lives. And so I guess that's going to be where I'm going to end, and I haven't yet gotten the 2-minute warning, so yay. And I thought it was important to come here and speak with you all who are such important, rights holders in this process, to just let you know of the plan, and certainly I'll be around, and we can speak in more detail, but you'll be hearing more from me if you haven't already. Thanks very much.